You are in a 3-star Michelin restaurant in Paris, and you are a sommelier. The chandeliers hang above the velvet tables, the lighting is low and golden, and every guest walks in dressed as if tonight is a royal ball. You adjust your tie, standing taller, because in this place appearances are everything. Behind you, the wine cellar gleams like a holy sanctuary. Glass doors showing endless shelves of bottles with names from Bordeaux, Burgundy, Tuscany, Napa. From the outside, your life looks like a dream. People imagine you spend your nights sipping the best wines, talking about aromas of cherries and leather, and guiding rich diners through a luxurious experience. The truth is very different. Before the first guest even calls you over, your stomach already feels heavy. You carry the weight of remembering more than 1,000 labels, vintages, and producers. And if you forget the slightest detail, someone will notice. Each bottle has a story, and you are expected to tell it flawlessly with the perfect French or Italian pronunciation, as if you were born reciting these names. You cannot hesitate, not even for a second, because one pause is enough to make a customer smirk and doubt your authority. The pressure begins long before the cork leaves the bottle. When a waiter signals you to a table, you approach with your practiced smile. The guests barely glance at you before tossing the wine list on the table and asking for a recommendation to pair with foie gras and duck. You must give the answer instantly, and it must sound confident, natural, as if you did not spend years drilling these combinations into your brain. You hear yourself suggest a sauternes, explaining why its sweetness balances the richness of the dish. They nod, impressed, but your heart still races. You know a wrong choice can ruin the chef's dish, turn the table against you, and make the entire restaurant look careless. In this job, there are no small mistakes. Pour a glass a little too full, mispronounce the vineyard, suggest a wine that is not exactly right, and you do not just fail, you are humiliated. Guests laugh, chefs glare, managers take notes. What looks like elegance is a tightrope. You smile while your mind runs through lists of vintages and soils. While you calculate which bottle can be sold without making the guest feel tricked. While you hide the fact that the waiter beside you earns tips without studying every night until exhaustion. On the surface, you are surrounded by gold and crystal, but the truth is that you live under constant threat. The room is full of people drinking for pleasure, while for you, every sip is another exam. Being a sommelier is not about enjoying wine. It is about surviving in an arena where one slip of the tongue or one wrong cork pull can turn a dream into humiliation. Training consumes everything. To work at the highest level, you spend years drilling the names of regions, producers, vintages, soils, and climates until they form an atlas carved into your brain. Burgundy is no longer just a word. It becomes a detailed map you can walk through mentally, slope by slope, vineyard by vineyard, recalling that 2005 was generous with heat while 2007 drowned in rain. Bordeaux is not a category, but thousands of chateaux, each with reputations that shift from year to year, each requiring you to remember whether the left bank dominated with Cabernet or if Merlot brought softer edges that season. The pressure to know it all never lifts, because the guests who test you are ruthless, and the exams that certify you are worse. The Master Sommelier exam, considered the peak of the profession, has a pass rate that barely reaches 5%. Candidates dedicate their lives for the chance to sit in front of a panel of judges, pour a glass, and identify within minutes the grape, region, subregion, vintage, and even the type of barrel used. If your guess is wrong, there is no sympathy. Years of work collapse in seconds. To prepare, you blind taste every single day, lining up glasses with wines that start to blur together, pushing your tongue and nose to extremes. One moment you must detect citrus and flint in a Chablis. The next find leather and tobacco in a Rioja. The stress is constant because pleasure has been stripped away. You are no longer drinking. You are dissecting, cataloging acidity levels, tannin structures, and aftertaste that most people never notice. Friends open a bottle to celebrate and laugh, but you are still working, identifying whether the oak influence is American or French. How many months the wine might have rested in barrel whether the soil composition is granite or clay. Every sip is training, every swallow another exercise in endurance. Your palate stops belonging to you and becomes an instrument fine-tuned for survival. Even the joy of sharing a glass disappears, because where others taste warmth, you only calculate descriptors. The discipline extends beyond the table. Sleep is measured, meals are regulated, and your daily routine bends around sharpening memory and keeping senses alert. You cannot afford to burn out your tongue with spicy food or dull your nose with smoke. Every part of your body is recruited into the service of wine, and the cost is that there is no space left for simply enjoying it. In the end, the same skill that makes you valuable also steals the very pleasure that drew you to wine in the first place. The dining room feels like a theater, and every service is a performance where one mistake can destroy the entire show. The first guests arrive and order foie gras with a red fruit reduction. The expectation is that you deliver a perfect wine pairing without hesitation. The decision has to be immediate, your confidence absolute, because any pause or stutter reveals doubt. A Sauternes might be the right call, with its honeyed sweetness balancing the richness of the foie gras. But you also know that if the wine is served too warm or too cold, or if the sweetness overpowers the dish, the entire table will see it as your personal failure. There is no cushion here, no second chance. The chef sends out a dish crafted with microscopic precision, and you are expected to honor it with the liquid equivalent of perfection. The pressure multiplies when the kitchen is involved. A chef with 3 Michelin stars will not tolerate a glass being sent back. He sees it as an insult to his food, and that anger lands squarely on your shoulders. Behind the swinging doors, the kitchen is chaos, but in the dining room you must stay composed, gliding between tables with elegance. A single wrong suggestion and the chef's fury explodes, because he knows a guest unhappy with wine will judge the entire restaurant. You become the fragile link in a chain of egos, expected to hold firm under impossible tension. Even the owner watches you like a hawk. A glass return means profit loss, and profit loss means you are the one responsible. Luxury restaurants survive on margins thinner than most people realize, and bottles that cost hundreds or even thousands cannot be risked. Every cork pulled is money on the line. If a guest refuses a bottle because you hesitated or oversold it, the humiliation is immediate. The table complains, the owner glares, and the staff whispers. The public humiliation is the hardest to endure. You pour wine into a glass, and a drop lands on the pristine linen tablecloth. The guests raise an eyebrow, the others laugh, and suddenly the illusion of elegance shatters. A smirk from a diner, a chuckle from a passing waiter, and you feel exposed. In that moment, it does not matter how many hours you studied soil composition in Burgundy or memorized vintages from Piedmont. What matters is that you let a stain appear where perfection was expected. Service continues like a battlefield disguised in crystal and velvet. Each table is another test, another chance to fail in front of people who came ready to judge. Some nights you handle 10 or 15 tables, each demanding a flawless recommendation, a flawless pour, a flawless smile. And every time you succeed, it does not feel like victory, only relief, because you know the next test is seconds away. This is the constant state of working in fine dining. A performance where applause never comes, only the absence of disaster. The worst challenge is not the wine itself, but the guest who believes they know more than you. You approach the table with confidence, suggesting a Bordeaux from an excellent vintage, describing how its balance of fruit and tannins would elevate the dish they ordered. Before you can even finish, the guest cuts you off with a wave of the hand. No, that wine is not good. I prefer this other one. You glance at the label they point to and know immediately that it is the wrong choice. The structure will clash with the food, the balance will be off, but you cannot correct them without appearing arrogant. The role forces you to swallow your expertise and serve with a smile while they gloat in the glow of their self-declared wisdom. Many guests use this moment as sport. Some ask for vintages that do not exist, intentionally ordering a Burgundy from a year when hailstorms destroyed the crop. or requesting a chateau that has never bottled a single wine. They wait for you to either call them out or stumble, ready to laugh at whichever path you take. Others invent labels, fake producers, or regions, watching carefully to see if you will nod in agreement and expose yourself as a fraud. Each conversation is a trap, and your reputation is the bait. The humiliation is deliberate. In luxury dining rooms, guests often treat sommeliers as punching bags, using you to prove their own sophistication to the rest of the table. They mispronounce Italian varietals loudly, and then challenge you when you correct them, twisting your knowledge into a weapon against you. A diner might insist that Sauvignon Blanc is a red grape, daring you to disagree. If you correct them, you are a snob. If you stay quiet, you are incompetent. Either way, you lose. One night, a man insists on opening a young Barolo with delicate white fish. You explain gently that the heavy tannins will overwhelm the flavors, but he interrupts again, smirking, saying that a real connoisseur would know better. The rest of the table laughs at his joke, not at the truth. You are forced to comply, pouring the wine and watching silently as the pairing collapses, knowing the kitchen will curse you even though you try to stop it. Another night, a group of businessmen demands that you identify a wine they have poured into a decanter. They laugh when you hesitate because they filled it with cheap supermarket Merlot instead of the Grand Cru they claimed. They never intended to enjoy the wine, only to enjoy your embarrassment. These confrontations never end. They do not test your knowledge because they want to learn. They test you because they want to dominate. In their minds, humiliating a sommelier proves their wealth, their education, their status at the table. You become the stage on which they perform arrogance. Every suggestion you make carries the risk of being mocked, dismissed, or twisted into a joke at your expense. The room may look like velvet and crystal, but for you it often feels like standing in the stocks, waiting for the crowd to throw its laughter in your face. In 2018, Aldo Somm, one of the most respected sommeliers in New York, revealed a story that spread quickly through the wine world. A wealthy client in a luxury restaurant demanded bottle after bottle, rejecting each one in turn. 12 wines were opened that night, each costing hundreds or thousands of dollars, and each was sent back untouched. The guest had no real complaint. He was simply flexing his power, humiliating the sommelier in front of the staff and other diners. Somm explained later that this was not about taste, it was about dominance. To the client, the sommelier was not a guy but a target. That same year in London, at the acclaimed restaurant The Ledbury, another extreme humiliation unfolded. A millionaire ordered a rare bottle, tasted it with a theatrical pause, then deliberately spat it onto the pristine floor before laughing at the sommelier who served it. The entire dining room watched as the man ridiculed the very role meant to protect and honor the wine. For the staff, it was a nightmare, and for the sommelier, it was a moment that stripped the job of any dignity. The abuse is not limited to the dining room. In 2020, during the pandemic, the fragility of the profession was exposed. Even sommeliers with international recognition, such as Pascaline Lepeltier in New York, spoke publicly about the instability of their income. Working in fine dining did not shield them from sudden collapse. With restaurants half empty and guests hesitant to spend, sommeliers were pushed harder to upsell $1,000 bottles just to keep their place on the floor. The image of elegance hid the reality of precarious work, long nights for uncertain tips, and the demand to transform hospitality into relentless salesmanship. Wine, in those moments, was not art or culture, but pure merchandise, and the sommelier was reduced to a pressured salesperson in a suit. The toxic atmosphere runs deeper inside the institutions that shaped the career. In 2018, the Court of Master Sommeliers, one of the most prestigious organizations in the industry, was shaken by a massive scandal. That year, it was revealed that answers to the blind tasting portion of the exam had been leaked, forcing the institution to invalidate results. Candidates who had spent years training suddenly saw their achievements erased. Soon after, darker accusations emerged. Reports surfaced that several female candidates had been coerced and harassed by male master sommeliers who controlled access to mentorship and exam opportunities. Stories of intimidation and abuse of power painted a picture of a world that demanded loyalty while exploiting ambition. These examples reveal that the suffering of sommeliers is not only in the daily grind of serving impossible guests, it also comes from the very structures that are supposed to uphold the craft. The profession builds itself on a language of refinement, tradition, and culture. But behind the curtains, there are humiliations, abuses, and politics as bitter as spoiled wine. The lesson is clear. The cruelty comes from both sides of the glass, from the arrogant guests in the dining room to the gatekeepers of the title itself. The sommelier walks into battle not only with customers, but with an entire system that thrives on pressure and pain. The weight never leaves you. Every shift begins with a straightened jacket and polished shoes. But inside your chest is the same knot that tightens with each reservation added to the list. A single dinner can decide your reputation, your income, even your place in the restaurant. If a powerful guest dislikes your pairing, no matter how flawless it should be, the blame lands on your shoulders. A glass return is not just a minor setback. It is humiliation and a reminder that one person's mood can erase the value of your entire night. You live trapped between pride and fear, smiling while you wonder whether the next request will be the one that breaks you. Tips control your survival. Some evenings you walk away with enough to cover rent and bills, a small relief that makes the long hours seem worthwhile. Other nights, when tables are stingy or a single mistake poisons the atmosphere, you leave with almost nothing. The work does not stop being intense just because the rewards vanish. You still spend 10 or 12 hours on your feet, standing with perfect posture, moving lightly across marble floors, even while your back throbs and your knees ache. Heat follows you everywhere. The kitchen burns with fire and steam. The cellar suffocates with its thick air. And yet you must emerge as if untouched, elegant and collected, never showing strain. The physical exhaustion becomes routine, but the psychological toll cuts deeper. Every guest is a potential humiliation. You never know if the table wants a genuine recommendation or if they are looking for a chance to mock you. Your memory and palate are tested again and again, not with exams but with smirks and dismissive comments. The pressure does not end when service closes. Lying awake at night, you replay the moments when you hesitated, the look on a guest's face when they doubted you, the anger in a chef's glare. The mind cannot relax because the next day will bring the same trials again. The cruel irony is that wine was meant to be joy. For others, it is laughter, conversation, celebration, a taste that marks a wedding or a birthday. For you, it has become a weapon turned against yourself. Each sip is another analysis, another reminder of work, another drop of anxiety. The drink that once promised beauty now tastes like pressure, and what should have been a passion slowly poisons you. The public sees the surface of refinement, the graceful sommelier presenting rare bottles with charm, but the truth beneath the polished glass is unrelenting. Sophistication hides suffering, and the role that appears to be the pinnacle of culture is, in reality, life under constant judgment. The job transforms wine from pleasure into daily venom, and the cost is your peace.